Hey guys, former WWE superstar Hornswoggle, and you are now somewhere in the ring.
The following podcast is scheduled for one recording with no time limit. Making their way down to somewhere in the ring, Andrew Sanford and Ryan Sprague.
Dive right in. Are you on tour right now? Are you currently?
Yeah, perpetually, just like every weekend, kind of just forever.
That's
your purgatory. I love it.
What's your favorite place you've been to so far on this leg of the tour?
Oh God, I mean, I really enjoyed Fort Collins in Colorado. Had a lot of great food. Any city that's described as crunchy granola, even if people describe it in a negative way, saying that's usually a city I'm gonna love.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd say Portland has been amazing. Seattle's been amazing. I'm trying to think if there are any surprises, but those are the ones.
Crunchy granola. Noted.
Yeah. We are three theater kids here. I know that. And I know that obviously when you're out on the road doing shows, it's harder to see other shows. Do you try to catch local theater while you're out and about though? Or is that something that you kind of wait on?
Oh, I've always been terrible at seeing shows because I'm usually doing spots. Sure. And I think I went through a long period of time where I did not see anything, and I would get jealous if I saw it. I would feel like this weird fucked up. There we go. Already cursed. This kind of envy, and I've gotten better about it. So with my girlfriend, we've seen a little bit more. We saw a play on Sunday, but I think what's different now, what's so funny now, I have a lot of friends who are they're like understudies. And so I go and I see the show that most people would go, oh man, the lead's out tonight. And that's the show that I go to. And it's good. So I only did it. The problem is I was in New Zealand and I was like, okay, maybe theater's different enough here. This will be a unique. And I saw, it wasn't even bad, but it was like a 2-hour theatrical piece on global warming that, again, it wasn't even bad, but it was just like, I agree. Sure. And it was just so much, just a lot.
We have to clarify twice that it wasn't bad. It's usually
I swear it wasn't bad. Yeah. I love that. I was going to say, Gianmarco, one more time, and I was going to be he thinks it's actually bad.
Yeah. I am Andrew Sanford. This is Somewhere in the Ring, a show where we talk about wrestling and then we talk about lots of other stuff too. I'm going to stop trying to pretend that we only talk about wrestling on here. But I'm with my co-host Ryan Sprague, and we have a very special guest this week, comedian, actor. I saw you in Hustlers, Gianmarco Soresi. Hello, Gianmarco.
Hello. I'm excited to be here. I saw my first wrestling match in a long time. My girlfriend got me it for a Christmas gift last year. So we went to Madison Square Garden and watched the first match in a long time.
Whoa!
That's
so would that have been? It was Dominic Mysterio against CM Punk. Did that happen at any point? Was it a WWE show?
Yeah, it was a WWE. I don't remember that match. Because I think I would have remembered, is this Mysterio's son? Rey Mysterio's son? Yeah, I would have remembered that. So definitely not, because I would have been really thrilled to see that. It was honestly, I don't even know if this was, what do they call it when it's not televised?
Like a live event or a house show, yes.
A house show, yeah. I'm pretty sure it was a house show. You could really feel, I think about the budget now, and sure. the announcer, who, by the way, God, let me do that. I want to get slammed in a ring so badly. Let me come out, get booed, and then have someone come in and just slam the hell out of me. Truly a dream of mine. And the host, he was wearing a suit, but it was a little too tight. I was there was not a lot of money put into that. And I was so curious. I was like, did he get? Because it's Madison Square Garden, it's sold out.
Right.
And I was like, I bet you got $500 for this. That was my guess. Like I just had to feel.
You're probably right.
It was so much more sanitized. You know, I was into wrestling, and I just watched that Vince McMahon series, so I really kind of revisited.
Sure.
And the video you sent me was very much like from the era that I was watching.
Excellent.
And I gotta say, I really am allergic to sanitized. What's the guy's name? Justin frickin' Rollins.
Oh, Seth freaking Rollins.
Seth freaking Rollins.
Seth freaking
Like,
Rollins.
I hear that and I go, my eyes. I'm like, please, please don't do this. Why?
What's even funnier is we live in a day and age where there's no more like there's not really any like kayfabe or more anymore. They can't. So when they trademarked that name, people found out about it before he started using it. So like it even.
Oh wow.
Yes, like that's the element of like the business stuff that we hear now. They'll be like, "Oh, WWE trademarks like Fight Club," or like they trademark like all this kind, or Seth freaking Rollins, and then
oh yeah, I mean it's to the
find out
point,
ahead of time.
Gianmarco, where like they're going to Netflix in the next month or so, Monday Night Raw, and I can't even imagine the amount of trademarks we're about to see. They're probably going to trademark wrestling. They're probably going to trademark ring. I have this like sneaking suspicion they're just going to go total nuts to the wall.
I am so fascinated though because I don't know. Recently, I read the Vince McMahon book, and then I watched the TV series. Just happened to be coming out. I forget the Vince McMahon book. It was read. It was a popular one, but it was just about his life. And
what a guy to steep your life in for a while.
Yeah. If everyone knew the term kayfabe, I feel like I would overuse it because I'm like politics are kayfabe. My career's kayfabe. It's all kayfabe.
Sure.
And I think what's so crazy about watching The Rock kind of enter his heel era or whatever is I'm like, okay, but then you were at the Moana premiere with like a cast of little girls going like, "Yay, Moana!" And it's it's one of those things where I'm like, you're too famous to play the kayfabe game. B, I think you could, if you wanted to utilize social media, like really lean into it. But like The Rock is literally, I like to be a little tricked. We live in a world where I'm going on, but like Robert De Niro, I remember there used to be a thing with acting where actors were like, we don't do commercials. Robert De Niro was like, I don't even like doing late night because I want my audience to be able to believe me as the character. And with the fracturing of media and, you know, people just being money hungry pigs, that no one gives a crap about that anymore. And it would be impossible to. But we do lose something, I think, in the process. Seeing Anthony Starr from The Boys do a phone games commercial, I go, ugh, it doesn't ruin it for me. I didn't think he was actually a superhero, but I don't want to see it. I don't want to see Walter White doing a commercial. You know, it
like
hurts.
TurboTax. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the same with wrestling, where I'm like, with The Rock, I'm just like, man, it's hard to fully buy, and I want you to go meaner. I mean, the thing about Vince McMahon, for his many crimes and everything, he literally was a true villain in life and on stage. And I'm not saying that's good,
right?
But if he ever got in the ring and someone like power slammed him, you'd feel like, yeah. Power destroy that old man. He's evil.
Yeah.
And we do lose something, I think, with the world that we've cultivated.
Oh, and we lose so much because then you can take somebody like, I don't know, a guy named Mark Calloway, who you might know better as The Undertaker, who has exactly.
Dude, I have it in my podcast studio. I have an Undertaker action figure, and I'm like, I need to put this down.
Yeah.
Well, before that, listen, I already knew that. I listened to his Rogan, you know, but
sure.
I saw this thing he was like in the ring, and I don't know if it was like a wedding thing, but he was talking about his wife or something, and he was in character, and he said, it's all because of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I was like, oh, how am I supposed to buy that the living dead gives a crap about another guy who came back to life? Get out of here. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with The Rock too, there was, because he went through the whole villain stuff, and we have seen him. What's kind of funny is that was a pivot. Really.
Yeah.
Because when he first came back, he thought like he clearly like he had Black Adam was a failure. He's like failing all over the place, and then his coup at Warner Brothers didn't work, so he was like, "Let me go back to wrestling where they love me no matter what." And everybody threw him out the door, and we
don't want you back.
Him kind of pivot and be like, "All right, fine, I'll be your bad guy." But then, like you're saying, they did like a press conference in Las Vegas, and a little boy walked onto stage on the stage at one point. He just got up there. I have twin 3-year-olds that are both boys. I could see it happening. I understand how that happened. A kid just got away and got on stage, and then The Rock sat down or like got down on one knee, and he is in full on. He's wearing the stupid like cow vest. He's got the sunglasses. He's doing the things that piss people off, but then has to get down and start singing Moana to this kid. Like,
now imagine if he just rock bottomed that little kid right on the stage, did a people's elbow. Oh man,
where would we be now? Guys, where would we be now?
And that'll, Gianmarco, so people at home know, because we were just having fun and talking already. Well, tell them a little bit more about yourself. And if you don't mind, because we've already established that you're a comedian, has there been a moment in your career where you remember where you have had to pivot very suddenly?
Sure. Well, I'm a stand-up comedian. Kind of touring is my main bread and butter. Podcast host of a show called The Downside.
Mm-hmm.
But I really pivoted very fully from. I went to college for musical theater and was very dead set on that. And I think I hit a wall when it came to singing. I just don't think I really had competitive talent. Mm-hmm. And I spent a lot of time trying to prove that false. But you hit the real world and you're like, oh my God. So then I was acting, and I was doing fine. I don't know what I would have gone, but it certainly wasn't like clicking in everywhere.
Sure.
And then I wrote a play for myself, and I kind of was autobiographical, and I talked to the audience, and I just found a lot of the positive feedback, and the part that I felt I was like excelling at was that talking to the audience part.
Yeah. And
I'd done a stand-up comedy class in college, and so I kind of knew a couple pieces to put together, and I just leaned in hard, and I was lucky. I was really lucky that I got into, a truly terrible comedy club called LOL.
But LOL. Yep.
Yeah, and it was like, so many comics wouldn't be caught dead there, but a lot of comics had gone through it at some point in their lives, and I basically got to do every check spot, which was the unpaid spot. When they drop the checks, it's notoriously bad, and they give it to newer comics. And I was able to do, I swear there was like a year where I was doing 4 a night, if not more, and I just got an incredible amount of stage time there, and I was hooked, and I was there every night. And I think if I have anything skill-wise, it is an ability to sacrifice. I feel like I sacrificed 2 years just going to this nightmare club, and I just worked. And COVID, social media focus, and then was touring when the world opened up. So that was my big pivot to stand-up comedian. And I felt starting to go into COVID, and then certainly out of COVID, I'm a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
Can I ask, what are there any big similarities between musical theater and stand-up comedy, or what's like the biggest difference between the two in terms of your perspective as a performer?
I certainly think like when I was struggling with singing, I'd crack on a high note, and there is a real possibility of failure in stand-up and singing, and humiliation. that's accompanied by it. And I certainly, the anxiety of singing is far worse than the anxiety of bombing. In my experience, singing, you could just go nuts. But other than that, it feels, it's stand up. You have so much freedom. And I recently did, it's been a long time since I acted, but I did a very small part on a multi-camera, which is with the live studio audience show, maybe 4 lines. But you go like, man, it feels so constraining. It feels like just, oh my God, I don't even know what it is I'm doing at this point. I'm just trying to hit these 3 marks and I can't change any words. And it reminded me of like how good the life is of being a stand-up comic and being able to respond. I mean, I think to not to bring it fully back to wrestling, but like one thing that thrills me listening to that Vince McMahon documentary was moments that they realize, oh, you're a heel now, and it wasn't planned, and there was a real, it's slower than stand up because you have to like go back and be like, okay, we'll have you do this next time. But when they really feel like, oh my God, the audience hates you in a passionate way, and that's what's really cool about wrestling too. I think is like to be hated and it's successful. That you can be a heel. The concept of a heel is so cool. Yeah. It's tough to. No one in a stand-up comedy set do you get booed by the whole audience, and people go, "All right, we got something here."
Good,
sure,
yeah.
And then as far as like the constraints of doing the multicam, that makes a lot of sense because you do a decent amount of crowd work from what we've seen and from what you've put out online. And so is that less planned when you go into a set? Do you try to leave some room for it, or you're like, let's see how the room itself is?
Yeah, I think it's easy to like look at what I post online and think that I do like a ton of crowd work, because like if I'm doing regular spots, I don't really do crowd work. I always have a lot of material. But what I like to do when I have my druthers on the road is like my headlining sets, I like to do like 90 minutes, hour 20 to 90, depending on what I got in the tank. And I feel like within that, I just leave room. I definitely I look to do something. And the best crowd work I find is like, I hear someone laughing weird and I go, oh, is something up with your dad? And it was something specific. Or sometimes I seek it out, like, if I have a new joke, my sister fosters dogs. Anyone fostered a dog? And then kind of just to keep it fresh. And then sometimes, end of the day, you go, what do you do for work? It happens.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's only planned in that, like, I like to talk about screwed up families. I like to talk about, sometimes I have like a theme in my head. Where were you for election night? Who else has 88? Who has Adderall? Like, so I'll have those. I have a document that like has some maybe new questions I'm trying to explore. But a lot of it's really, I usually write down that stuff and I forget it immediately and just go off whatever is there. And it keeps it fun for me. I'm incentivized to do it, no doubt, because I have to put out a lot of content, and I really balance putting out finished material versus crowd work. But it mostly is like in the moment, but I'm looking for it. I'm looking for something usually. Yeah. And sometimes if I have a lot of new real material I want to work on, I kind of get that one. If I get one great crowd work thing, I go, good. I don't have to do it. I don't have to do any more tonight.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How has it been since the election? Like, I know so many comedians say like how difficult it is nowadays to do a set without offending somebody. But, how has it been since you've been out on the road since the election happened?
The bottom line is, I think like most people who go to comedy clubs are usually less sensitive in general. I think what happened with a lot of those older comics that got really upset about cancel culture is they were having a really disparate experience between everyone in the club loves this and everyone online is saying this is bad, and feeling kind of a rage about it, and feeling like, oh my God, for some of them it's like my act, my livelihood. You're saying it's inappropriate, but it's still killing. But these are younger people. These are the people buying tickets. You want to stay relevant. And so it really was like an existential, getting older, struggling thing. In general, though, and I think I walk the line plenty, and I try to push, and I sometimes will say a joke that I'm like, it's not quite clear that I'm not trying to be cruel here. Like, I push it, and I have only gotten kind of mean emails about very specific political things, and by that I mean Israel.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I've ever, like, 90%, if I were to take all the complaints or emails I've got, it's just, that's pretty much it, to be honest.
Sure.
You see that subject line and you're like, here we go. All right.
I think what's kind of frustrating about that as well is I think you do very well with those jokes, if I may compliment you for a moment. I think it's not only are they funny, but they're biting. And it's like there's that clip of Jeselnik that's been going around about like art is getting away with it. And I think it's even more than like getting away with it. I think you are not even pushing, but you're just being honest and trying to make something funny out of something very terrible going on.
Sure. But look, like I think what can be tough, and I'm sure will happen to me at some point, where it's just like sometimes you're working on something and it's not fully there, and sometimes you just screw up. And I think what's so unfortunate is that if you screw up, to apologize almost makes it worse. And so then no one apologizes, and maybe that's fine. But I post usually when it's good to go. And I think I have a good sense. And every once in a while I'll put out a joke where I'm like, oh, I'm nervous.
Sure.
But even those, I'll run by my girlfriend who's very, I think, can see a bigger picture better than me sometimes. Mm-hmm. And even then, sometimes we disagree, and I go, nope, I have a sense. And we all, like, I think we all, like, for me, I don't want to say like, oh, I'm an expert in jokes about race, but I do think I grew up in Washington, D.C. at a school that really discussed diversity and discussed inequity and inequality. And I do think because of that, I know where my heart is on a lot of things, and I think the jokes that I write reflect that, where it's like, if the twist is insane, sometimes it's like, oh, it's clearly the twist is the funny part. And if the point of view is funny, it goes, oh, the point of view is coming from not a hateful place, but just a strictly comedic one. So, but like, there's other areas where I like have to learn, or I would be more nervous. I don't think you will hear me with a lot of jokes about, Muslim people, because I didn't grow up with a lot of Muslim people. So I don't have a particularly unique vantage point of like, my friend's Muslim and I'm Jewish, and here's a joke about that. I'm sure one day if I felt I had that thought, I would. But I think younger comics, where they screw up a lot is they tell jokes that are in the edgy sphere, as opposed to being like, from my life, what is edgy?
Right. Absolutely. Yep. And then to get a little bit into the kayfabe of it all as well, because you tell a lot of jokes about your parents, about your life in general. How much do you change when you're trying to turn it into a joke? Do you have to try to change to fit the punchline, or do you try to stay away from that and find the joke in what actually happened?
It's definitely a mix. And I think what I try to do on stage, and like, it's kind of a have your cake and eat it too, where some things are clearly jokes, just the setup, the nature, the twist. And then sometimes I'm going to talk to you from my real perspective. And sometimes I'm going to try to get you to believe I'm talking from my real perspective, and then change it to a dark thing and surprise you. So my goal on stage is for you to be tricked over and over and over again. And, you could have a cynic in the audience being like, I don't buy any of this stuff. But
Sure.
but I think that's what can be fun about stand-up, and that's what gets stand-ups in trouble, because they go, well, that's why podcasting made things so complicated, because podcasting, I still have a little bit of a character on the podcast, but it's way more just me
Sure.
talking about my unvarnished life.
Right.
And that's why someone goes to the podcast and they go, oh, I was just joking. And they go, well, you talked for 3 hours about your day. So is that,
Sure.
But that's what I also think is fun. That's what I think can be fun about comedy, is you can trick people.
Yeah.
And kind of, you can blame a character if someone doesn't like something to a degree.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. Yeah. And you can also get in people's heads. Like I said, I have twin boys. They're 3 years old. They'll be 4 in like 2 months. I have thought often about, you tell a joke about how you and your dad will kiss each other when you say hello. And I have that rolls in my head every now and then, because I kiss my little boys. They're my little sweethearts. And I'm like, how long can I do that? How long are they going to be okay with that? How long? Every now and then. So thank you for that. But
how long before Ryan says, Andrew, I got to talk to you about something.
Ew. Yeah, but I think I always go through the day, and there's like some stand-up comedians bits that every time you see that thing in real life, you're like that Seinfeld bit. God,
exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Like I'll never watch the Olympics. I don't even know the Seinfeld bit about, second place. The difference between first and second places, and that.
Yeah.
Lifetime status, loser. And I'll never. So the day that I die, I'll see a marathon and I'll think about that bit.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Stays in your head. I love it.
Yeah. So we're here to talk a little bit about wrestling. And then what we usually do is I'll ask folks if they have like what their experience with wrestling is, right? And with you, we've already talked about it. You watched some when you were younger, I take it?
Yeah, I went through a real, I would say it was middle school for sure. I don't know how long the stretch was, but like, I feel like probably 4th grade through 8th grade, something like that.
Yeah.
I remember really distinctly. I mean, I had the VHS. I had the best of D-Generation X, the best of Stone Cold Steve Austin, the best of The Rock. I remember really distinctly going to a match where people had this big inflatable thing, and this was during the Suck It era. I mean, poor parents. I'm going around 4th grade going, suck it, like this, and I don't even know what I'm doing.
No clue.
And there was this big inflatable thing at the wrestling match that said "suck it," and I asked my dad, "What is that?" And he said, "Oh, that's a middle finger." And then, like, crazily, like in 8th grade, I was like, "Oh no, that was a penis!" Like it literally sat in my head for years, and then I was like, "Oh my god, of course."
It's funny too. Andrew and I went to see Monday Night Raw in, where were we? Albany.
That was almost a year ago.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And we, between the matches, when they go to commercial, they'll work with the crowd and whatnot. And they'll do like their version of the kiss cam. They'll have all the kids do something that a wrestler does. And I specifically remember we're sitting there and like, all right, guys, it's the suck it cam. And this is 2023 at this point.
Yep.
And you've got these 10-year-old kids in the audience. They don't know Generation X either, Gianmarco.
Yeah, no. It's a 20-year-old gimmick. Yep.
They just know the gimmick, and they're all doing the suck it. And Andrew and I are sitting there like, is this really like I can understand back during the suck it era, but like now they're still doing it. It's crazy.
It's very fun. I mean, it was so. This is at my dad's. So my parents were divorced, and my dad's was like the fun watch whatever house. Sure. And so I just look back and I go, I loved it, man. I mean, it felt like the best. Stone Cold was awesome. The Rock was cool. But Degeneration X, like what was the tag team called? Roadie Dog?
Oh yeah, Road Dog,
No.
Jesse James, and Badass Billy Gunn, the new age
Badass
outlaws.
Billy Gunn.
Yep.
And he had his short tights that always have like lips on it or whatever.
Yep.
And I just felt like that whole crew, along with China, just was a really cool. They were just a cool conglomerate. So loved it.
It's also like I think we're all around the same age. It was also cool on the playground. Like it was cool at school. It was kind of like inescapable, which made it more alluring.
I think I was definitely like in it when something happened in Florida where some kid killed another kid doing like a move.
Oh, sure. Yep. Yeah.
My dad. This was like when my dad. It was like the better times where he just was a bachelor, and so he would let me bring 2 mattresses to the living room, and it would stay there, and it was the wrestling ring. And
sure.
I had like a dinosaur doll, and I would do, suplexes, and my dad and I, would do like wrestling moves. And I begged him to build a wrestling ring in the backyard. That was like my dream.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I have a Mr. Sacco that Stone Cold Steve Austin poured a beer on and threw. My dad waved it over. I was like, here, throw it here. And we got this Mr. Sacco.
Oh my God.
And,
that's like
really
Hall of Fame worthy right there. You got to hold on to that thing.
Well, someone washed it. As a kid, I was like, it smelled like beer, and I was like, oh yeah. And then someone washed it. I was devastated.
No.
I also, speaking of the Mr. McMahon doc, I like to think that Mr. doesn't believe in CTE, Stone Cold Steve Austin, thought that was a person and was just pouring beer on a human being.
Sure.
He probably did.
That was one of in a doc full of stunning things that are said. It's something about Stone Cold. I don't buy any of that CTE stuff, and I'm like, I think it buys
that really
you,
stuck
Stone
with
Cold.
you.
Like, I don't think you get a choice.
Yeah, but
not all the McMahon stuff.
He seems pretty nice, though, right? He's like generally a decent one of the good ones.
I think
there have been some rumors of.
I believe he's been arrested
abuse.
for domestic assault at least twice. At least twice. Yeah.
Right.
Steroids, like, and not to excuse bad behavior, but so many of those guys, like that's what did it to Chris Benoit. Well, that and the CTE, like all these guys they were just getting like amped up on roids. They didn't know how to handle. A big thing that I think they talk about at least a little in the documentary is they wanted to stay on TV all the time, so they would get hurt and not say anything.
Yeah.
Because if you get taken off TV, that also screws with your money. Like that's how they like. There's a big misconception in the industry, like, oh, you want I pointed with the wrong hand. You want a belt, you want something like that. They just want to be on television because that's when you get paid. Like that's when
it's like if I was a wrestler and I got charged for domestic abuse, I'd be like, I very much believe in CTE. In fact, I think that I have it, not to excuse myself, but I think I definitely have it, and that should be taken into consideration.
Yep. But there's another pro wrestler that you have mentioned that you have had a direct interaction with, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, that we talked about earlier. And you guys had I wouldn't call it a Twitter feud. We'll call it a Twitter back and forth.
A friendly banter. Yeah, sorry.
Well,
what would you call it, Charlie?
I walked it back. So it was, first let me just say, it's not the first time. The Rock went to the University of Miami, where I went to school. He was a football player, and I believe, if I have the history right, he injured himself, and that's ultimately what led to him becoming a wrestler, even though I know he came from a family of wrestlers. But he saw me in a production of Hello, Dolly. It was junior year of college, and he was not the level of fame he is today, but he was a megastar.
Sure.
And it's so stupid. I was too young to realize, like, do not go backstage after the show. Walk right up to The Rock and say hello. So it was so funny. I was so young and dumb. I saw him. He stood up. He was the first to stand up, and stayed for the whole thing. And I found The Rock on Facebook and wrote a message. I bet I can find it, where I was like, I don't know if this is actually you, but thank you so much for coming. So yeah, there's no way he knew who I was, but I definitely had seen him in person, and it was very cool. And then I talk a lot of trash on Twitter for fun, and this was still a little bit earlier on. Here, wait, I'm restoring my chat because I want to see if I can find this message. We, I've gotten better at Twitter now, but like this was still I was building myself up, but I've never been great at fighting online. I get too angry. But I was low enough level to just talk trash now and then. And there was an article about The Rock. He's crazy. And he's like, I remember once reading, at some point he woke up at 5 just to eat protein, and then he'd go back to sleep and then wake up an hour later. And that's crazy. That's crazy. He said in this article, he showers 3 times a day. So I quote tweeted and I was like, that's a lot of something about him being crazy, and didn't think anything of it. And then I looked on Twitter and my tweet had all these likes, like way more likes than normal. And I was like, that's weird. And I clicked on it and The Rock had replied and getting, 1,000 times more likes. And it was like, hey friend, the way he talks, that very passive aggressive, like, is it Buana? He uses some like Hawaiian word that's like, my brother. Hey Buana, not weird at all. You're actually mistaken. I'm not a total weirdo. I just shower 3 times a day, and I wake up 3 times at night to shove raw chicken into my mouth, and it's not weird at all, actually. And I wasn't looking to. I wasn't looking. Now I think I'd fight with The Rock online, but I wasn't looking. So I did a very pathetic, like, Mr. Rock, sir. Oh my God. We went to Miami together and you saw me in Hello Dolly. And then him being the statesman, John Mulaney had a line that said it seemed like he was always running for mayor of nothing. That's what his ex-wife used to say. And The Rock is like trying to run for global emperor of nothing or whatever. Like, and so he goes, oh, Hello Dolly. It was such a great show. I remember that. A fellow Kane, go Canes, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, very cool. And left it at that.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, that's around the era where I was like, okay, my words have consequences. I can say it on this. I had a general meeting last week with the production company that The Rock runs. Nothing like they weren't like, so what's the TV show? It's just like talking, just in general. But it's like I go, well, if I don't bring this Rock thing up, hopefully no one will ever know. He probably forgot, or who knows? The Rock. It wouldn't surprise me if he said, Gianmarco Vincent Soresi from Hello Dolly, who then roasted me for showering 3 times a day. I could see it. I could see him having one of those.
Yeah. It could make or break you while he's eating his raw chicken. He's just like, that was the guy. Hire him. Yeah. Who knows?
There you go. Yeah. So we had you. We asked you to watch a match before you joined us, so we could talk about that a little bit. Because I just thought, what's funny is it was very hard to find. You know how they'll have the list of worst matches or and pro wrestlers have to do some of the dumbest things ever, dumb stuff. The Rock has somehow managed to avoid a lot of that. And maybe that's just him being a good businessman while he was wrestling. But it was hard to find something that was more embarrassing. And the closest I could find was a match that he had with Rikishi where he gets a bare ass shoved and rubbed in his face.
Okay, wait. Sorry, can I read it? I found it.
Oh my God, yes.
Please.
Pathetic. January, February, March, April 23rd, 2009.
Let's go. Hello, Mr. So he's already Get Smart Rock at that point too. So
yeah, and just to be clear, this is a fake account on Facebook.
Oh no!
Hello, Mr. Johnson. My name is Gianmarco Soresi, and I played Cornelius in Hello Dolly. I wanted to thank you for seeing the show. It was an honor to see someone who inspired me to start performing when I was very young to watch me work. I hope you come to another show next year. Be well. Sincerely, Gianmarco Soresi. P.S. When I heard you were in the audience, I wanted to somehow incorporate the people's elbow into the performance, but it didn't seem to fit anywhere. There we go. That is humiliating to read.
No, and first of all, I admire your hustle because I remember I went to
Absolutely.
a performing arts school and they were just like, "Oh, you have to write about like one of your heroes," and I was like, "What? What do you mean? I'm doing this school, so I don't have to write." And I was like, "Okay." You know what? Michael J. Fox really inspired me to become an actor, and it was just absolute nonsense. But I was like, I think I can spin something out of this.
He wrote me back. He said, my friend, I lost my wallet. Can you wire me $2,000? What's your social security number? And I said, Mr. Rock, please.
Yeah. I cannot tell you how many of those Facebook accounts I've messaged thinking it was the actual.
Please don't tell us how many of them you have.
I will not.
Right?
That's why I'm poor. That is why I'm poor.
You're like, one day I'm gonna wire somebody some money and it's gonna work
It's
out.
gonna happen.
Yeah. Yep.
You'll see me on Catfish.
Sure. What did you think of the match? If you don't mind, we don't have to get. Oh yeah, there we go. There's The Rock. There's Rikishi.
I mean, I certainly like. If you had told me that, I remember Rikishi. Pretty incredible acrobatics. One thing I don't think I really I didn't appreciate until like later as an adult was the people who can sell a reaction to a hit. You know, I knew it was not, this was choreographed to a degree, but I think I always saw like the person doing the move as the kind of the one doing it. And when Rikishi does a backflip off the clothesline or whatever happens, I'm like, oh my God, you did a backflip.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
He really is. I always wonder, like, I always just wonder, like, about the performer. I'm like, is when you get matched with Rikishi, do you go, I'm going to stretch. I'm going to do a lot of stretching.
Right.
Do you talk about it because he's just a lot of weight to be moving around.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also just imagine that to be a bigger wrestler, it's got to be easier. I guess sometimes. It depends what kind of wrestler you are. You'll see Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant never had to do a backflip. I mean, but Rikishi, I definitely remember the butt move. I remember loving it as a kid where he just rubs his ass in your face. But it was a good match, a very good match.
And I'm trying to find what's even funnier now is that basically The Rock is now currently like working with all of Rikishi's kids. Like that is
that was real, that they were like their families were.
See, that's what I'm trying to find is that because they definitely Rikishi is from the Anoa'i family. And he has 8 children, which is congratulations.
Is he still alive?
He is still alive.
Yep.
He is still alive. He runs a wrestling school. But his kid, he's got 3 kids. Jonathan, Joseph, and Joshua, known better as Jay Uso, Jimmy Uso, and Solo Sikoa, who are like at the top of
hottest
the WWE
wrestlers
currently.
Right now.
Yeah. And The Rock last year, as part of his coming back, was like where they're called the Bloodline. Like it's this whole thing. So it was kind of funny to hear them talk about that and think like, oh, 20 years. I think they're like cousins, him and The Rock, but it might be like second or like once removed or like one of those weird like something where they at least call each other cousin. But yeah, I can't think of a single cousin who I would want their ass on my face. So it's one of those things where I have like a lot of respect for them to
you
like
just don't have enough cousins. Andrew,
I don't.
I'm sorry. It's just a numbers game.
But yeah, that was real. And Rikishi, this was somewhat removed from him. They did a Hell in a Cell match where this big man was at the very top and they just pushed him right off of it. And he falls into a hay truck.
The guy took some bumps. Yeah.
Just cause. Yeah.
Yep.
That's
This was
crazy.
actually a really, to get back to the match, like Andrew and I will, like he said, often try to find a match that maybe is a little bad, something we can
Or
really riff
silly,
off
something
of.
weird.
But I'm watching this earlier and I'm just like, dude, this is a really good match. Like they both look amazing in it. Like there wasn't a lot of this, oh, he's the big fat guy. Like let's the only time we really got that was with the signature ass move, I guess. But
Yeah.
this
And
was
when he
kind of
jumps on him.
Yeah,
a
his
bunch
his
after.
sit move, his corner ring.
Yeah.
Very good point. I did forget about that.
Yeah.
Andrew, could you set this up a little for us, though? Like, why
sure.
were The Rock and Rikishi fighting? I think that's just as funny.
Yeah. So
into this match.
Rikishi, up until this point, was as big a baby face as you could be. Like he would get into the ring and dance with the tag team Too Cool. And they would just be in the middle. And they had a whole, like, you know, if you've ever been to like a white kids party and from 1999 to 2002, there was that dance at some point. Never, not once. But they would do this dance. And then there was this big thing where Stone Cold was legitimately injured. And to write him off of the show, they had him hit by a car, which is one of my favorite things in pro wrestling, which is that someone will have a legitimate injury. And then they're like, look, I know you're already hurt, but we really need to beat you up significantly on camera to sell this. we can't have you walk away. Like, I know you're like you have a broken orbital bone, but like we gotta also like somebody's gotta kick you a couple times. So they had Stone Cold hit by a car, but it was mysterious about who it was. And I would say there is a 98% chance that backstage they also did not know who this person was going to be down the line. And then it ended up being Rikishi. And it was this weird, like, we're going to make him a bad guy.
Of my life.
Oh, well, and I think one of the reasons that this match was listed in one of the only like top 10 worst matches of The Rock's career that I could find is because all of it's never like, oh, they blew this spot or somebody got hurt. It's all expectations for The Rock. And people did not like this. This took a year. I believe it happened at like Armageddon the year before, and it took them a year to get to this, and that was it. And then it was just a short little match.
Like, Rikishi?
But it's not a bad match. It's not a bad match.
I know. It's wild. Wrestling fans are a very fickle folk.
I was very curious because the sledgehammer is not a very usual prop. And I also think it's so funny. You know, you try to just suspend disbelief. But Rikishi needed to wait for The Rock to turn around before he used it. And I was like, hit him now. Hit him in the back. What are you waiting for?
It's also one of those things where as a wrestling fan, you start to learn different tells. And more often than not, if someone is going to hit someone with a sledgehammer, which was a big Triple H thing, they are grabbing it like what can I do? Like they are holding
Use the pumpkin.
They are holding their hand on the metal part and holding the stick. So they are basically hitting you with their hand. Like, and they're doing like a sweeping. So when Rikishi went back holding it like he was going to swing it like a bat, I was like, he's not going to hit him with that. Nobody ever hits anyone like that with a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
So it's just this like weird little thing. And I respect a lot of that as well. Cause I'm just like, oh man, imagine you are doing one of these matches. You're in front of 20 to 60,000 people. And you're like, I got to remember that. Wait, no, hold on. Cause you wanted to do this. I was yelling something at me now. Hold on. Wait. Okay. So I gotta, all right, I'll get the sledgehammer. And then, no, I can't do that. Cause I have to like, there's so many things that they have to keep track of while also still selling some level of believability.
Can I tell you one thing that kind of bothered me when I saw it live, the live match recently was like, one of the biggest things that I get exhausted of with wrestling is the 1, 2 kick out. And I understand this is the, you know, it's like being annoyed at, you know, a lighting change or a changing of the keys in a musical theater song. But I really felt like when I saw it, and again, I don't watch enough wrestling to like know, like, oh, I think I have a sense of, oh, this match is kind of boring or it's not going anywhere. And I felt like it was over-reliant on that process. That's why for me, when I look back, ladder matches to get something hanging. Lot of fun. Undertaker's weird, like you had to go into the coffin and close the coffin or whatever that was. I think the regular premise of the pin is so repetitive. It's so repetitive, and at the end of the day, it's going to be finisher, no, second finisher, yes, and yeah.
And what's tough too is, especially with house shows like that, you don't have the announcers filling in some of the gaps or some of the excitement. You don't have like the play-by-play, the commentators.
Yes, that's very true. I didn't even think about that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Which would probably so then they have to be like, all right, what sells to the back of the house? Like we gotta do the pin thing over and over again.
Yeah,
and it's something where whenever there's a little bit of innovation with that kind of, it's very exciting. There was a match earlier on this year at SummerSlam between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, and it was they were roped together. And to win the match, one of them had to touch the four corners of the ring in succession without being interrupted.
Oh, wow.
And it was really fun. And they had you basically had to drag this 200-pound guy with you as you're trying to tag things. And then at one point, like Drew McIntyre was holding CM Punk and thought he was knocked out, but CM Punk was going behind him and tagging the turnbuckles at the same time. Like there's fun stuff. And they don't do that enough, I think.
The gimmick matches have always been my favorite too.
Ladder matches are rad. They're insane. No ladder should be used like that.
Right, exactly. Ladders are for putting up lights, people. That's really.
I feel like I remember table smash. You had to set up the table.
Yeah.
Just new ways that you can you got one it's just different.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is. Yeah. Oh man, but hey, The Rock ended up winning this match, right?
Yes,
let's get that in.
He
there.
did.
Really, and then he got.
He did, and then they had him Rikishi do a whole post match. What was the term? So what's the term? Is there a term for when is it stunting, where someone does their finishing move and then the guy gets up like it didn't matter at all?
It's called a no sell. It's no
sell.
Yeah,
and I like it because once in a while it's funny, and then it's almost like there's suspension of disbelief, and then there's something where it's like we're going to play with it, and I think in playing with it you still can go too far into oh, I thought we were playing a game and now it doesn't seem like we are. But once in a while it is cool for someone to do a finishing move and to not affect them somehow.
Yeah, there's a wrestler named Samoa Joe who and it's become kind of like a meme where someone will get up on a turnbuckle and he'll be all dazed and they're about to jump at him and he will turn away at the last second and be like, absolutely not. And they'll just fall on the ground. And that is one of those things where it's the more they do it, the funnier it gets. There's there's a picture going around where he's turning away from somebody and they had the wherewithal to in midair go like this and shrug. So they're in midair flat out what the heck? And
that's so funny.
Really good.
The
Gianmarco,
lines are getting blurred more and more every day.
Oh, as they should be.
Yeah, it's fun.
This was fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
My pleasure. I had such a good time.
Yay. If people want more of you, where can they look?
So I got a podcast called The Downside. We actually did an episode with a wrestler. Bobby, like an indie wrestler. It was very funny because we started the podcast. Let me find his name. I feel bad. We started the podcast and he was doing it in character, and I was like,
you don't have to do that.
And no offense to indie wrestlers, there was not enough dimensions to this fake character to have an hour and a half conversation. Bobby Orlando.
Okay.
And I'm really fascinated by wrestling. I want to figure out. I gotta explore the non-WWE stuff because now the WWE feels like there's going to be they're going to become a government branch under the Trump administration. I'd like to find a more maybe indie art.
They already are.
They are. Well, I mean, Linda McMahon is
exactly.
You better believe Vince McMahon's getting pardoned. You better believe it.
Vince McMahon, Eric Adams, like they're all people. I was like, the worst people just got the best news in their life. Like it's driving.
One of the greatest details from that Vince McMahon is when they did the limo blowing up. Was Trump calling up WWE and saying, "Hey, is Vince okay?
Oh my god,
is Vince okay?"
That.
My incredible,
so good. But yes, Gianmarco, you would be tailor-made for. People invoke the name Andy Kaufman too much, but you could absolutely strike that tone. I believe. I think that would be something you would be very good at. So. Please, there's indie leagues. There's indie leagues in New York. It's out there, baby. They want you.
Get in that ring, man. Get in that ring. You have a tour too, right? Going on right now.
Yes. So I'm on tour everywhere. So the downside to my podcast, you can watch it, you can listen to it. I'm on tour pretty much every weekend. Best way to find it is follow my social media. It's just my name everywhere, every platform. Gianmarco Soresi.
Yeah. Where's that poster, Ryan? Let's get a look at the poster.
I got it right here. Boom.
Let's go. Come on.
There she is.
Hell yeah.
Also, the video you did with Jay Jordan for this, very funny.
Thank you.
Very funny stuff. I also like to see comedian friendships online. That's always very lovely. But Ryan, how about yourself? What's going on?
I
didn't mean to surprise you with that question.
No, not at all. The one question I have to answer this episode. You can catch me on the Somewhere in the Skies podcast every Monday if you want to hear about what's going on. We have a UFO hearing, a congressional UFO hearing happening tomorrow, which is just insane to me that we're at that point in U.S. history where we're having congressional UFO hearings about flying saucers. I will be live streaming that entire event tomorrow, doing like a commentary to it. Should be fun. I'm on the current season of Ancient Aliens. You can catch it on the History Channel. And I'll be, in the upcoming season of Mysteries Decoded on the CW, which I believe is going to be airing in just a couple months. So I'll have more info on that very soon. How about you, Andrew?
As always, you can watch my short film Pay the Tithe on Vimeo that I wrote and directed. If you are in the New York City area, I will be in Meaneth Girls for the Drunk Texts this Friday night as Mr. Duvall. I did not write this one, but The Rat NYC in Dumbo. It's a great time, adapted by Robert Peiss and Aaron Lee Schmoyer. It's Shakespearean Mean Girls, and we're going to be playing drinking games, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And just keep your eyes peeled. I got stuff. There's friends of the show, Tim Barnes and Jim Fagan. We have a short coming out in the coming weeks. There's stuff. So just keep your eyes peeled and all that good jazz. Gianmarco, to end the episodes, we have people ring the bell to send us home. Whatever that means. I am so excited that you're excited. Whatever that means to you. Do you have a bell?
Okay.
I don't want to put pressure on you.
No,
I don't pressure, man. Whatever it means to you.
Yeah.
I definitely don't have a bell. So I am in my kitchen. This feels good. I have a good sense.
Okay.
You need to be able to have it to be a little bit of echo. So I have, luckily, metal chopsticks. I'll do one metal chopstick underneath here.
Oh my God. That is commitment.
Yeah. Excellent. That's the first time we've ever gotten a physical bell, so thank you. Gianmarco, thank you so much, bud.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right, take care.
Bye.
This has been Somewhere in the Ring. Thank you for listening. Subscribe wherever you get your pods, and be sure to rate and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever possible. We'll see you again soon, somewhere in the ring.
This has been a production of LIONSGATE Sound. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever possible. Thank you for listening.